welcome back to another episode of the Quest for Success podcast. I mean, we've had some incredible feedback the last few weeks, and so we really appreciate all that. And for those listening at home and watching the video, they might notice that Jam looks a little bit different today, and he's still away in Sri Lanka, but we're lucky to be joined by a special guest, Mr. Michael G. And for those who listened to episode 2, you would have heard me talk about Mike, because he's the friend that I went and stayed with on those weekends while I was over at Stanford. So it's a real pleasure to have you here, Mike. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I think it'll be a good one.
Yeah, it was quite the intro. Thank you for having me.
So Mike, I know you've listened to a few of the episodes, but what we're trying to do here is understand different people's definition of success and try and understand what they think the secret ingredients are to building a successful life, a successful career. And so I want to start on that note. I want to ask you, what is your definition of success?
That's a tough one. I think a lot of people have their grand 20-year plan, 30-year plan and everything. I don't think I have a plan like that. I kind of just do what I want to do today. I actually listened to an interview by the founder of 37 Signals the other day, and he was like, yeah, man, he's like, sorry, this is a full tangent, but he's he's a really cool guy. And he's basically like, I only care about 2 things, whether I go to bed happy at night and that the company is profitable. Don't care about anything else. Yeah. And he's like, I really don't have a 10-year plan, because he's like, I want to do what I want to do today, not what I wanted to do yesterday. And I think I kind of have maybe a similar philosophy, at least right now.
Yeah. So you're kind of just living in the moment, I suppose, is key to you.
Yeah.
And is it what is it about being in the moment? Is it you want to be happy in the moment? You want to feel fulfilled? What are you looking for in the moment? Or is it just being present?
I think, it's spending time with people you want to spend time with, spending your time working on things that you want to work on, living in places that you want to live in. I think at the end of the day, success is probably agency for me, being able to do kind of whatever I want.
Yeah. Man, I love that. And I suppose before we really delve into everything, we should probably give a little background to how we met and who you are and what you're working on. So we went to high school together, and we did a lot of things during high school, cadets, all sorts of things. And then after school, you left us for the States and you went over to Carnegie Mellon, and now you run your own little AI company. And we'll delve into all of those kind of topics one by one. But I suppose just for the people who don't know you, that's kind of a high level of your life. You're a startup founder living in San Francisco at the moment, and you went through the US college system.
Yeah, well, we go way back, Mate, we worked on C-Maps together, old tracking device. We're sitting there soldering things after school every day.
Mate, we've been grinding on little projects for a long time now. It's probably coming up to close to 10 years at least.
Yeah, oh, easily, yeah.
Which is crazy. And I think it's funny, even when you moved away and we wouldn't talk for a year, and as soon as you came back, it'd just be you'd never left.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah,
nothing's changed. No, nobody has changed. Nothing really changes. Yeah, there's kind of beauty to that.
I think that's when it's true friendship, when you can just not talk for a prolonged period of time, and then you come back. And it's just it's just like yesterday.
You pull up in San Francisco, just like when we left off.
Oh, mate, exactly. And I suppose now we'll dive into the nitty gritty. I want to start in your early days. And how do you think, you grew up here in Australia. How do you think your family, your parents, and growing up here kind of has influenced your journey?
I think personally, I owe a lot to my parents. My dad has always been an entrepreneur. My mom is now an entrepreneur. And I don't think, my dad would always come home and he's always talking about what happened during the day at work, right? And I think even from a young age, I always thought my dad was king. My dad was doing his own thing. He had his own office. He had his own staff. And, over time, he started his company the current company a little after having me. And so when I was growing up, I kind of grew up with the company. It started off in like a kind of like this weird garage space. Then we moved to like this weird industrial block, and now they're in like the Sydney CBD. And kind of watching him work for his success and be able to really provide for the family, I think, yeah, man, there's just something so magical about that.
100%. And I feel the same, because it's like, for me, my dad started his business like at a similar period as well. And it's when you grow up with that, it's like you're always surrounded by business, and it's like
Dude.
something in your brain is like wired differently, because then you see like a normal job, like the 9 to 5, and you look at it differently than most people, because yeah, you see the intense struggles that your parents go through setting up the business, but then at least for me, I've got to see the time freedom as well that now my dad gets now. So you see the intense struggle, but then also like the payoff, and it kind of weighs up a little bit differently to you.
Absolutely. When they move from kind of like more of like a operator to more of an owner, and they have like really complete time freedom, I think there's something nice about that. Although, my dad now, he goes back and every day he does a lot of like concierge work as well, just to kind of stay like really ingrained in the business. But I think you see both sides of it, right? Like, not every day was, sunshine and rainbows, right? I think through my mom, I also really saw the stability of what, a job brings. And that, you can have great fulfillment in, through just working at a company, a 9 to 5 or whatever, right? Yeah. And actually I noticed that recently as well. My dad had a high school reunion, and a lot of his friends didn't start companies, but they worked the course of 40, 50 years. They built great careers, they built great families, great lives, and they're incredibly fulfilled. Some had really great payouts at the end, some didn't, but just hearing about them, I think a great life. And this is the point of the podcast, right?
Yeah.
A great life looks different to everybody.
100%. And it's like in last week's episode, we talked to my grandfather, and
I can't wait to listen to that.
Yeah, he had worked as a tradesperson like his entire life, and just the like pure joy and fulfillment that you could see in his eyes just when he was talking about his life. And it's so crazy to see just how stark the difference is for different people. Like, for one person, it could be like, working super duper hard, building my own thing, and that's what brings me fulfillment. But then for someone else, it's just like raising a family.
Yeah.
And the beauty in it is there's no right answer. Like everyone has their own definition. And I think that's like really what we love to hear here. Like the different sides of the coins, because especially now, with social media, I think everyone sees the quote traditional version of success. You see all the crypto millionaires, everyone selling their courses on how to be wealthy, and I think kind of maybe our definition of success as the younger generation kind of being influenced by social media is maybe being pushed towards that kind of monetary success, whereas in times gone by maybe it wasn't influenced so heavily.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really cool to see.
I completely agree, and I don't think a lot of people know quite what they want until they try it as well. Like your life, my life probably is like a living hell to somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's just not for them, right? Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. And so this is a question that I personally like to ask people because I think it's really telling, and it's cool to see what the person ends up doing. But what was, like, growing up, what was the thing that Michael G wanted to be? What was the dream?
Dude, I wanted to be a barista.
A barista.
Yeah. So my dad, he runs a company that teaches people how to be baristas.
Right.
But for the first, 10 years, he was on the floor teaching people how to be a barista.
Yeah.
And so every night I'd come home smelling like rotten milk and coffee. But, as a kid, I just thought my dad was a barista. And so I still remember in 4th grade, We had to draw like these little like cutouts of people.
Yeah.
And you had to draw like your dream career. And, everybody had like doctor, lawyer, dentist, and barista on mine. The teacher's like, you're really good at math, Mike. Like, maybe you should like be a mathematician.
Yeah.
No,
I'm a barista, baby.
Miss McGregor, I want to be a barista.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with baristas, mate.
Dude, 100%.
They could have the most fulfilled life.
Yeah. But I think it was mainly because my dad was a barista
Yeah.
there. And my dad was like, I was talking to my brother the other day, and like, dad was like the king. Like, he had it all worked out. Even if he didn't at times, it seemed like he did for us.
I think that's so telling, right? Like when you talk to people and they talk about their parents in such admiration, and I think you see it play out. Like, you always want to be like that admirable person in your life, and you try and replicate a lot of the things, especially when you're young and really malleable, right? So I think that's really cool. And honestly, I reckon a lot of those people who probably had, doctor, lawyer, whatever, who knows, maybe they didn't even end up going down those paths because, we changed so much.
Yeah.
And maybe they wouldn't be as fulfilled and successful doing a career that was just traditional.
Maybe they tried it and didn't like it. My mom as well, I owe a lot of credit to my mom. My mom had lots of different careers. She trained as like a classical pianist. She did a master's degree in classical piano. Then she decided, well, actually, I don't think I enjoy this anymore. And so she went right back down to the bottom and retrained as a lawyer. So she became a corporate lawyer. She did technology law for many years. And then she realized, oh, well, actually, I don't really enjoy this. And then she started working as like a school teacher, pianist. Now she runs her own company. Like, I think a lot of people get caught up, particularly at our age, just around, I don't know if this is the thing that I want to be doing for, the next 20 years. But I think a lot of people get caught up in that instead of just, giving it a go. And
yeah. And sometimes it's like the decision paralysis can be worse than actually just going and trying something, realizing it's not for you, and then moving on. And like for me, personally, I've experienced that. I went and studied engineering, did engineering, and now I'm like, maybe that's not for me.
Yeah.
But, I don't look back on that experience negatively. I learned so much, met so many great people.
Exactly.
And so it's like our story is kind of written on purpose, and everything that we do along the way, we learn something, we get a new experience, which we add to our playbook, and it'll come out later down the line.
Yeah. I think it's Steve Jobs' has a quote, like, the story is written looking back, not looking forward. Yeah.
Connecting the dots, looking back. I love that quote.
Zing.
Yeah, so good. And so now I want to move on to high school, because that's, where we met.
Yeah.
And I think we met because we both did a lot of co-curricular activities.
Yeah.
Pipe band, cadets. We did a CMAPS, as you said, a little like tech project outside of school. And I want to get your perspective on this, because for me, I think looking back on high school, doing all of those co-curricular activities, as well as, being focused on my studies, I think that developed like a great sense of discipline and being able to do lots of different things at once, which I think reflects what real life is as well. Like, you're not in life, you don't just like go to school and then it's done.
Absolutely.
You go to work, you come home, and you got 50 other things to do. And so I think like it taught me kind of how to juggle.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think it also teaches you to try lots of things as well, right? Yeah. Like, we tried all sorts of things in high school, and some we enjoyed, some we didn't enjoy. But then you realize, okay, I'll put more time into the things that I do enjoy. And then I think by the end, we were very busy throughout the whole of high school. But I think everybody kind of had the, I don't know, 8 things that they really enjoyed doing towards the end. And that was like their 8 things. Yeah. But I think you only get that through trying, which I'm really grateful. The school made us do like different sports, which, I didn't want to do at the start. They made us go camping, which I didn't want to do at the start. But actually, I did them all the way through. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And I think it's again, it's something you only reflect on looking backwards.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, when you talk to other people and you hear their school experience and you go, wow, we are so lucky because we got exposed to so many opportunities all at once. And I think that really, really made it.
Unbelievable. And to do, do all those activities with, friends as well. I made memories. We've made memories that, we'll carry with us for the rest of our lives.
100%. And I feel like, doing them like while we were studying as well, it gave us like respite. Maybe it's different for you, but when I would go to school early, just to go to pipe band before we started the day, it was like I got a little bit of musical release before I go and work for the entire day. And then after school, we might have like cadets or something, and it's like, oh sweet, I get to be outside with all my friends. And so it was kind of like a bit of work play.
Yeah.
And so I think I enjoyed that a lot.
It's really nice. It got us up in the morning as well. I look back now, I get up a little bit later, but I look back in high school, dude, like we were in bed early. You're still like this, but we were in bed early, up early in the morning. Now, I'm up late.
No, but I think that's good. It like sets a kind of discipline.
Yeah, from a very young age, yeah.
Which is good. And I remember I can't remember what year it was, but I remember there was a period there where you ditched all of us and you went over and did a short little course over at Harvard. And I remember everyone being so hyped about it because it's like, oh my God, Mike's going to Harvard. This is crazy. Can you talk a little bit about what you went over and did? Because I still don't really know.
Before people think I actually went to Harvard. Well, I was just like a very short couple-week course at Harvard.
Yeah, but like in what year was it?
It was grade 9 or 10, I think.
But in year 9, just the fact that you were going to Harvard was like the talk of the town.
That was a really great opportunity, actually. I was at that time looking at studying in the US. And unlike Australia, where if you just perform well in your exams, you get into your course, in the US, it's a holistic application. And so you have to show them you're really good at co-curriculars, you're really good at this, you do lots of things, right? And part of that application was, it would look really good if you went to a summer school. And that's actually the reason why I started looking into these summer schools.
Yeah, right.
But I think it really changed my view on my relationship with work, I think. When I went over there, you spent, I can't remember how many weeks it was, but I think it was like maybe a bit over a month, just spending time with other people that really love their work. They love what they do. It's not, taboo to talk about it in like your spare time or anything, right? We just love doing it. And so I took a data science course there with, I think he's gone off and started his own company now, but a Professor Sean Patel. And he really, I think the interesting thing about the US is I think actually my experience is just in the US, but I imagine professors here are like this as well. But people are just very passionate about what they do. Yeah. And so this professor, he was showing us videos of all of these experiments that he was doing. And so he worked on brain-computer interfaces. And I remember him showing us this video of literally mind control on a monkey. And that's when crazy. Elon Musk was starting Neuralink, he flew out this professor to go talk to him. And at that time, I'm like 14 or something. I'm like, oh shoot, like humans can do this? Like we as people can actually do this? I think it really changed my perspective on what us as people are capable of.
Yeah, I think that's so fascinating. And like, I totally relate to that. Like going over and seeing that culture, it's like such a shock.
Yeah.
And you're definitely right in saying it's so different to the system here. Because at my classes here, definitely, I felt like everyone was kind of just reading off the slides, whereas over there, it's definitely not the case. So I think that's really cool. And do you think like that experience there was one of the big reasons that you went to the States? Or you said that you were already trying to get over there. So what was that? Why? Like, what was that turning point? Why did you want to go to America for college?
I already had my mindset on the US at that time. But at that time, I was also kind of in the mindset of, well, it was a very calculated decision before that. It was, if I can go to a college better than what I can get in Australia, then I'll go, and it probably works out that, I can get a job afterwards that pays me a salary that, can make up the difference of whatever it costs to go, right? After that, I was like, I need to go to the US. This is where my people are.
So that was the cement that really cemented.
That really, yeah. That was the kind of the final nail in the coffin for me.
And you ended up going to Carnegie Mellon, which is, world renowned for being an incredible computer science and software university. And you study, like, what did you study? What's your actual degree?
I did a Bachelor of Science in Artificial Intelligence, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, and then I did a concentration in Computational Biology.
Wow. It's quite the title. And how did you find that transition from living here at home and then being in a totally different place, so far away from home, it's unimaginable, and in a honestly quite a different culture as well.
Very different culture.
Because like even for me, the 2 months over there was like a rude shock. And there were days where I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I feel like none of these people can relate to me at all.
Dude, I think it's so interesting. Like, you just imagine, I think we grew up with a lot of US television and, we speak English, they speak English. So we kind of think, oh, the cultures are the same. Culture's really not the same, eh?
It's not at all.
Yeah.
And it's just like even the little things they do, and it just
and
makes
say
you miss
and
home.
perceive. Yeah, it does. It does.
So how did you find that experience? Was it like really tough for the first little while you kind of settled in?
I think there were some things that were tough, but I think at the end of the day, they're actually really fun. Like, it was just really broadening your horizon, because when you go to college, you've got people from all around the world there, predominantly the US, but our class was 50% US, 50% international. And so, in the first week, I upset a lot of people, I still remember asking some girl, I'm like, oh, where are you from? She's like, oh, New Jersey. I'm like, where's New Jersey? And she looked at me like horrified. But genuinely, I just didn't know where New Jersey was. And I think, Aussies are very laid back people.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, but I think ultimately, like, it was very safe moving over there for college. I think rather than maybe a job, like, college was very structured. They had really great orientation programs, get people mixing and talking. And so it was a really soft landing, I think, compared to maybe just moving over for like a job or even like a course. Like, our housing, everybody has to live on campus the first year.
Yeah, right.
So a very soft landing, I think. Yeah.
But I think like you make it probably sound easier than it is, because I think that like it takes an element of just like openness and kind of the ability to go with the flow, to have that attitude, just be like, oh, it was fun, new experiences and things like that. But I think for a lot of people, it can be, very daunting. And, as I said, you're so far away from home. It's not like you can just like get in a car and drive back home on a weekend or something. It's quite far. So I think, maybe that's one of the secrets right there. Just like being adaptable.
Yeah.
And being able to make the most of any situation. And I suppose that comes from being, open and willing to try new things.
Yeah. I think being independent is really important. Even just like comfortable being on your own. Like, I know a lot of people are uncomfortable going to a restaurant by themselves.
Yeah.
But actually, I really enjoy going to a restaurant by myself. I don't know. Are you okay going to a restaurant by yourself?
I would say like yes and no. It's like not something I would preferably do.
Yeah.
But, I've lived alone, so I'm okay with that. And it's something I wanted to ask you later, but now that we're talking about it, like, do you prefer that? Do you prefer sometimes that solitude? Because I know for me, like when I'm trying to do deep work, sometimes I appreciate, like when I moved away from home and I was in a totally different place, it almost was just like a shock that was like, okay, well, I'm here. Now I have to make things work.
Yeah.
And, I wasn't even that far away from home, but just being in that independent situation almost put me in, it triggered something in my mindset that was like, okay, it's not like you can just go and talk to mum or dad about this.
Mm.
Like, you're on your own now, but like you've got to figure this out.
Yeah.
And so it kind of kicks in a little part of drive and motivation where it helps you work a lot harder, I reckon.
Dude, yeah, I think so. I think it's very I think it's an interesting awakening when you realize, okay, like I actually have to fend for myself now, you know. I've got bills to pay, you know. I'm actually, you know, I need to worry about the law.
Yeah, true.
No, in the sense of like, say, like right now I am in the US and I've got a visa there, and so, you know, I've got lawyers that help me with the visa. It's not something where, you know, like just gets taken care of by, say, like the university anymore. Yeah.
No, I think that's, but I think it's a balance, right? Because it's, for me, there's like periods where I want solitude to do work, but then it gets incredibly lonely after a period of time when you're in that zone.
Absolutely.
And so I think there is a fine line. Do you agree?
I think I would agree. Yeah. I think it goes back to agency. Like if I want to be with other people, I want to have a space or have the ability to go and be with other people. But if I don't, then I want to be able to withdraw myself from that.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Just like that option to choose.
Yeah.
But then that can be a tough thing to do as well, because then the people around you sometimes feel like you only want to be around them when you want to. And it's kind of like a one-way thing. Have you experienced that?
You know, I think this is interesting. Like, I live in San Francisco now, and I feel like people just kind of get that, if that makes sense. Like, I think I'm pretty comfortable now just telling people, hey, I just don't really have the energy today to see you. And it's not about you, it's about me.
And I think maybe that comes down to a communication thing as well. So maybe that's like another a core thing there, is just being so transparent in your communication that, you know, as long as other people are in the loop, then it's really your decision at the end of the day.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's like a relationship, right? Like different relationships work for different people, I guess.
Yeah. And so you mentioned that one of your majors is in artificial intelligence. And it's the big hype word right now.
The hype word.
But when you started it, it was kind of before the hype. So what made you go down that path? Because it's not like you were just following a trend and, you know, jumping on the bandwagon, because you were pre-bandwagon. So was there something that you saw in that field that made you particularly interested? What was the journey there?
You know, it's quite interesting. At the beginning of my degree, I had to convince people why I was doing the AI degree. I would be like, it's basically computer science, you know, it's computer science with extra steps. And, you know, I also did the computer science degree just because some of the classes there were interesting. But I think having that as well, it made it a lot easier to explain to people, like, well, I'm also doing computer science. Like, you know, I'm not all in on this weird AI stuff. But in high school, I don't know if you ever saw me playing it. There was this game called Pokefarm, and it was this like browser game, Pokemon. And I'd play that, and I'd play another browser game, Adventure Quest Worlds. And
the truth is revealed.
The truth is revealed, and basically there was a lot of monotonous activity that you had to do in these games, like searching for certain things, doing things over and over again. And so that's how I got into programming. I would build these little programs to play the games for me so that they could play them at night. And then when I was at school, I could just like show off what I had.
I so actually do remember this now. And I remember another fantastic example of this is when we would go on cadet camp. It would be like 8 days long. And for anyone who remembers Snapchat, there was a thing called streaks. And like, if you missed a day of sending a picture to someone, then you'd lose your streak. And you had like 1,000-day long streaks.
Yeah.
And so you built a bot to send just like a black photo to all of your friends for the 8 days we were on cadet camp. And I remember just thinking, man, this guy is crazy. But here we are. And the craziness worked.
Dude, I lost that streak on like the third last day of high school, man.
Devastating.
Devastating. Haven't gotten over it since.
Man. And so I suppose now everyone is kind of like, damn, Mike, you made a really good decision going into AI.
I don't know if people are like, damn, Mike, but people are certainly interested in AI now. Yeah.
And why do you think that is? Why has AI become such a popular topic?
I think it's just the next level of leverage that it gives us as people. It's the same thing as, machines during the Industrial Revolution. Same thing as like, cameras and microphones that allow us, two guys to film a podcast and put it on the internet. I think it's just another layer of leverage that it gives us to do productive things, whatever we need to do as humans. And so I think that's why people are very excited about it.
And do you think the level of hype is realistic? Because it's a really big thing. But then there's some people that are saying like this is just overhyped right now.
I think it depends on, what areas you look at.
Yeah.
I think right now for a lot of, back office, document processing, like completely changing the game. I think for, and I think it's very democratized in that anybody can kind of do that now.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the more medical applications are really locked up in, these hospitals that have, limited data, limited expertise. And so I think it's only a matter of time before, these other sectors are able to leverage AI in the same way, say documents processing, you're able to use it right now.
No, for sure. That's really interesting. And before you talked about like one of the reasons that you kind of came to the US, or one of the helping hands to coming to the US was like, you could get a really good job, which would help kind of cover the costs of moving to the US. And so I know that you had some pretty big offers from some big tech companies for crazy salaries, like 300K plus, which is just out of this world for Australian salaries. But you didn't take those salaries. You went on a completely different journey, and you had the courage to go and start your own business.
Don't remind my parents.
No, but that's it takes a lot of courage to go and do that, to take that leap when you have, this huge offer sitting on the table.
Yeah. The offer is always going to be there though, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I think it's extremely, I don't think it's actually super risky. Like, you have the opportunity to go and give it a shot. There are clearly people that want to hire you if you ever become available, and if nothing works out, which I don't think that'll ever happen, but say the worst case, nothing works out, these jobs will always be there. And maybe they're not programming jobs in 5 years, maybe but I think people will always want to hire smart people for as long as humanity,
as long as they're around.
Yeah.
But was there a reason that made you want to go and start your own business?
I think it goes back to agency and leverage, right? Like, I think especially even sales jobs, like as a software engineer, I think it's very difficult, unless you're at an early stage company, to really have like a direct impact on, say, like the bottom line of the company. So it's difficult for you to, say, get leverage and propose to whoever's running that company, hey, can I have X% of the company? But even sales jobs, their commission is often capped at around like 500, 600K right now. And so your leverage is kind of limited. And so by starting a company, the whole point, I guess, as we've seen with our dads, right? You can completely detach your ability to make money with your time. And I think that's the beautiful thing that, we're striving for.
I love that. And leverage is the perfect word for it.
Yeah.
Because it's just like that disconnection of, your time and your wealth.
This podcast is incredible leverage. We'll film it once, and then, the watch time will be maybe less than the time we film it, but
that's a shout out to you guys to go and make sure the watch time on this podcast is longer than the hour it's taken us to record.
I mean, hypothetically, 1 million people could watch it.
Yeah.
And I think there's immense leverage in that.
No, 100%. And so you've what was the first kind of step once you decided you're not going to go down this traditional path and go and work for someone else? What did you do? Did you already have an idea, or was it just a process of ideation? What was the first step?
Yeah, at the beginning, I certainly had an idea of what I wanted to do. And what I'm working on now is completely different from what I started with. But yeah, I had an idea, and, I started talking to people about whether that idea was good. I was building prototypes, showing it to people. I think it was very similar to that feeling of when you came to the US. It was like, oh, shoot. Okay. Previously you can kind of roll into a job.
Yeah.
You can make pretty good money. Now it's like, oh, shoot. It's all on me now. It starts and stops with me.
Dude, I'm feeling that exact thing right now, because there's days where I can wake up and just go, oh, I really don't feel like doing anything. But then I go, damn, if I don't do anything, then nothing will get done.
It's like, do I really feel like not doing anything?
And so what was the idea that you kind of started with, and how did it develop?
Yeah, originally I was trying to build a better CRM for biotech investors. I did a lot of stuff in biotech in college. And at the time I started a nonprofit in college that would help researchers commercialize their research into companies. And so I talked to a lot of biotech investors. I thought it would be a good idea to build a better CRM that, looked at different academic papers, could really understand the researchers that they were looking at and track them. Turns out to be a very small market. There really aren't that many biotech investors out there. I really, and I think, it seems so obvious in hindsight, but I think, I really tumbled for even the first 6 months, 12 months. I'm still tumbling now. Learning things, just, kind of trial by fire. I think what's really interesting, and something that I've been trying to work on, is it's very easy to, say, read all of Paul Graham's essays on startups and think, oh yeah, 2 things that don't scale.
Yeah.
I'm a startup expert. I've read all of Paul Graham's essays, but I think these essays read so differently. And it's not just the essays, but all of this, I guess, advice on how to run and build a company. It reads so differently, I think, as you go on through the process. I don't know if you notice this too, but I'll reread something. I'm like, oh,
that's
shoot.
what he meant.
It just, or it's like a nugget that you just need at that very moment. And it makes so much more sense when it's very applicable to what you're doing. Like, kind of in hindsight, I look back and I think, I'd work on tons of projects and stuff, right? But I would work on projects completely separate to reading about startups and company building, when in fact I think what's way more valuable is if we take what we read and actually try apply it to something. Like, now when I read, I can't really apply it to anything in one ear out the next.
Yeah. And I think the same goes for so much advice. And I have this kind of idea that advice is kind of, I don't want to say meaningless, but it can only go so far.
Yeah.
And I think it really takes experience before that advice really means anything. There's been so many times, even just, advice from my parents, where I've been like, oh no, they don't know what they're talking about, and it doesn't apply to me. And then later down the line, something will happen and I'll go, oh, that's what they were talking about. And I think that's so true. Like, you need to have a little bit of experience before, because the people giving you advice are coming from a perspective of experience.
Yeah.
And so they're telling you from their perspective, but they have experience.
Mm.
And so you need to have like this foundational level of experience for that advice to kind of apply to you. And so I totally
Absolutely.
agree with that.
I text my dad quite a bit sometimes. I'm like, yeah, you know that thing that you told me to do? You were right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
but I think you're right. It's like the real estate developer that says, "Oh yeah, like you need to get into real estate. Like that's the only way to wealth." But you might be an incredible engineer, and engineering is your path to wealth should you want it. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And you quickly mentioned you started a not-for-profit. I just want to get a little bit more info there, because I don't really know a lot about what spurred you to go and do that.
So there was a pivotal moment in college for me. It was in my third year, during the summer, and this was when through college I just tried to try lots of different things. In the first year, I was doing a lot of quantitative trading. Like the second year, I was doing a ton of robotics. In the third year, it was like my biotech year. I was like, I'm gonna go really as far deep on biotech as I can. And so I lined up this internship with like a biotech company, doing some AI stuff for them. And so I was in San Francisco for 1 month, and then in Boston for 2 months. In Boston, I was living in basically like a biotech hacker house. It was 8 people just really interested in biotech, and they are some of my closest friends now.
So cool.
But they really changed my perspective on what you can do in life as well. It was kind of a similar moment to Harvard, where you see people with just such high agency. Like they decide, this is how I want to live my life. This is what I want to do. And they just go out and they do it.
Yeah.
Like one girl, sorry, this is probably a long tangent. But one girl, she wanted to go and study in the US, wasn't from the US. And so she found a high school. She proposed it to her parents. She's like, I want to go here. Some rural high school in the US. The parents are like, we can't afford it. She calls the school and it's like, hey, I'm probably butchering this story, by the way, but she calls the school and she's like, hey, I can't afford going to the school. Can you give me a scholarship? They're like, yeah, we can give you a scholarship. She went to the school. Now she goes to college. And I think similar things it's just like repetitive. It's like, you know what you want to do. And you're just going to keep knocking on doors until you can get there. There was just something so crazy about that. So inspiring.
Yeah, we kind of touched on vision, I think, in episode 2. And I think it's the same thing. It's like you have this vision of what you want to achieve, and then every decision you make, you ask yourself, am I getting closer or further away from that vision? And I think that story is exactly the same thing. It's like, oh, no, you can't go to this school. No, that's getting me further away from the path. How do I get into this school? Okay, got to go and do this. And it's like, really, the vision kind of gives you the pathway. It guides the pathway that you need to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. Some people are so maniacal as well. Like, was it Michael Jordan, when he was like growing up with his girlfriend, when he hang out with his girlfriend, all they would do is watch basketball videos. That's all they were allowed to do. They'd just lie in bed watching basketball videos.
I'm sure that went down well.
Yeah.
And so you were in Pittsburgh. Was this all while this was happening? You stayed in Pittsburgh?
Oh yeah, so the summer?
For like after you finished college and you're working on your business, were you still in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, so I was in Pittsburgh for 3 months after I graduated. I didn't have a ton of runway, and so I convinced one of the local accelerators to give me some space. I'm going to expose myself here. I slept in that office until I made enough money, and then I moved to San Francisco as soon as I could.
Man, I remember when you first told me that story, I just had a completely different level of respect for you, because that, for me, shows a real level of hustle. It's like, and it kind of goes back to what I said before. You were there by yourself. You had to make things work.
Yeah, it pushes you to make things work. When you're lying on like a floor raw, like just like raw on the floor, and you're lying at the ceiling, and you're in this big building, nobody else is there. You're like in Pittsburgh. You're like, damn, I got to get out of here.
But did you also have like a moment where you were kind of considering the other side? It's like, is this it? Like, will I ever make it out of here, or have I? Like, did you ever have any regret?
Never any regret. I think there were times where, yeah, it was certainly lonely, um, very lonely. But at the end of the day, I knew I was going to get there. Like, it may have taken 12 months. It may have taken 3 months. I was so optimistic. I thought it'd be out of there in like 2 weeks, but it wasn't. It didn't end up being like that. But yeah, I don't know if you have this as well, but for me, I will go through times, where I'm like, shoot, will this ever work? But I think I snap out of it pretty quickly. It's gonna.
Yeah, I think it's like you kind of have to just have that self-belief.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I've been reading some stuff where it's kind of pushing you away from having a plan B. And I'm not sure I like totally agree, because for me, I think if I didn't in the back of my mind know, like, okay, if this absolutely doesn't work, I'll at least know I'll be able to put food on the table and put a roof over my head. And so it's like you don't have that burning like stress in the back of your mind. And I think if you do have that, it kind of fogs what you're doing in the present. And because I think that's what they're trying to say is like, don't have a plan B so that you all in on plan A.
Yeah.
And like, I understand that. But then if you have that kind of doubt in the background, maybe it's fogging your judgment for today.
Do
you agree or not? Because like for you, like worst case, it didn't work. You could always come back here, and live with your parents. Or worst case, you could go and take that really well-paying job. Or did that not even cross your mind when you were going through those kind of tough days?
Oh, I don't think I ever thought of like a plan B. It was really like, I think when I get into times like that, it's very much, okay, if things aren't going well right now, I'm clearly doing something wrong. And so I can't keep doing these same things. Otherwise, I'm going to get the same outcome.
Yeah.
And it's bad.
Yeah.
And so, maybe it'll happen once a month, once a week even, where I just have to sit down, think, okay, why aren't things working right now? What am I doing wrong? Am I not doing enough? Am I not getting on the phone enough? Am I not sending enough, cold emails? Like, what's going on? And how can I fix it? And I think not only, hopefully by changing those inputs, it changes, the output over the long term. But I think mentally as well, it makes you feel like it makes it feel like you're a little bit more in control as well. But I think that's a dangerous thing to get comfortable with, like the feeling that you're doing work when actually your work is like very inefficient. That's the wrong thing.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. Can't remember what book I was reading, but it's basically like, I think it goes back to the 4 quadrants where you can do like important, not important, urgent, not urgent.
Yeah.
And you can be doing the not important, not urgent task and feel like you're ticking things off your to-do list.
Yeah.
I'm doing great. Like, look at me go. But you're just really ignoring all of the actual things that you should be doing. And so there's like a big contrast there.
Yeah, it's like the person who's like, oh my gosh, like I'm so busy. I just have like back-to-back meetings. And it feels good for them because the art of strategy, I think it's called the book, The Art of Strategy works like this. It talks about this, but it feels good because it's like, you feel like, oh, I'm an important person. Lots of people want to talk to me. When in actual fact, like, do you want to be in back-to-back meetings all day? The meetings could have just been like solved over an email.
Yeah. And I think that's something I've noticed in big corporations is there's just a lot of meetings that get not much achieved. And it's kind of just like ticking the box. oh yeah, we came to work, we had these like important meetings. But it's like, as you said, it's something that could be summarized in one email and save, hundreds of hours of just like total employee time in these meetings. I totally agree with that. Just doing things for the sake of doing things is definitely not the right way to go about. And so you've moved to San Francisco. What made you go to San Francisco from Pittsburgh?
Oh, so during that summer in my third year of college, I spent a month in San Francisco, 2 months in Boston in the house. When I was spending that month in San Francisco, I couldn't afford much. I lived in like this slum house of like 50 people. But every night I would go out and I would just try meet as many people as I could. There's like tons of networking events always going on in San Francisco, and that's how I would get my dinner as well.
Don't worry, I've been there, mate.
And I think I realized just San Francisco attracts everybody that it attracts everybody that wants to kind of make something of themselves, particularly in industries that I'm interested in, like software and AI. And so just being around people, weird people that are kind of similar to you, was just really, really attractive to me. It comes back to, how you want to spend your time and the places you want to be, I think. There may come a day where, San Francisco isn't the right place for me. But right now, I love hanging out with, my friends, debating, stupid stuff in tech. There's no place I'd rather be, I think.
That's so cool. And so you moved over there, and what, you just found a place and kind of hung out by yourself, or how did that progression happen?
Yeah, so throughout towards the end of college, when I knew I was going to go off and do my own thing, every probably 2-3 weeks I'd go out to San Francisco.
Wow.
And I'd just like stay there. I'd crash on a friend's couch for a week. Thank you to all my friends who looked after me throughout that long period. But through that, it was again a very soft landing. Like I had everything prepared. A nice place came up, just kind of at the time as making enough to move out. And so it all just happened pretty quickly.
That's so cool. And now you're in, what do you call founders? What? It's like a bit of an accelerator, a bit of a...
Yeah, they're an early stage investor that also early stage investor, product studio. They also have an office where all of their portfolio companies work out of.
Yeah, because I remember I spoke about that in episode 2 when I came up to visit you. Yeah. And just that experience of just sitting there with my headphones off, just listening to the stuff that people are creating, like fully life-changing. Just hearing that, it really comes down to, I thought about it, I think it really comes down to that space is so invigorating because everyone is so passionate and you are the average of the people you're around. And so like working in a place like that, you just feed off each other's energy and it just gets better and better.
It's magical. And I think also feed off each other's learnings as well. Like, there are a lot of guys that are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of me. And so when, say, I was trying to negotiate like first like enterprise contract, right? Yeah. I turned to, two of my buddies who had done it before. And I was like, how did you guys do it? How much did you guys charge? What did the negotiations look like? What happens when I have to go through like procurement? What does that mean? Having those learnings that you can just talk to and get immediately is just second to none. And hearing the problems as these companies have them as well, how they hire, good hires, hires that were mistakes. I think over time, the knowledge compounds, even if it's kind of peripheral, you just kind of hear it. You don't really process it at the time, but when the time comes, kind of hear it in the back of your head. You're like,
something clicks.
Yeah, so-and-so hired a person like this and it didn't really end well.
Yeah. I think also like hearing those situations early, you can like think about it from your business perspective. So it's like, oh, this deal went south because of XYZ. It's like, oh, okay. So like if I was doing that deal, something like this could go wrong. Oh, okay. How do I counteract that?
Yeah. Something that I wish I got to see growing up more was my dad actually at work. Like when if I ever went to his office, I'd go off and I'd be on my computer doing my stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I wish I got to see more of him. Like, did you get to watch your dad in his office, like in action?
Bits and pieces, because like I was similar, except I would be going and packing boxes, and my dad would be taking calls or whatever. But like I suppose later on, yeah, I got to see a lot more of it, and sit in on meetings, and there's something so. It's very interesting watching someone who you know really well, whether it's a friend or a family member, and you have this picture of them, at home and how you see them outside of work. And then it's really interesting to go and watch them at work, because it's such a different side to the same person.
Yeah.
Like I've even had it, friends from school, and then going to see them at work, and you're like, whoa, you are so different at work. But it's like, it's also like, it also makes you really proud as well, because you're like, wow, you are an expert in what you're doing. Because it's like, oh, I have no idea what's going on here.
You are number one,
but
yeah.
you, like, the way you hold yourself, and like, I think that's really special. And so, yeah, 100%, I got to see my dad do some of his actual work, and yeah, seeing that definitely makes you go, it makes you appreciate, all of the work that he's done leading up as well. And I think it's a very cool experience to do.
Is there anything in particular that you feel like you got from watching your dad actually do work? Because sometimes I think like, I would just see my dad at the end of the day when, he's been standing for like 6 hours teaching a class, but before that he's worked like a 12-hour day, doing all of the administration, advertising, marketing, sales, whatever. But I still do wish I got to see him actually doing it.
I suppose like one thing that I can think of off the top of my head, it's like reoccurring. It's like he is a father figure, but then you see him at work and he's still like a leadership figure.
Yeah.
And so seeing, that confidence of bringing together a team, and the way he delivers, his message and what he's trying to get people to do, and how he motivates people. I think that's really cool to see.
Your dad is super charismatic.
Just a fly on the wall, and like literally sitting at the back of the room and just listening in. I think it's really cool to see, because you see the warehouse getting bigger and bigger, but you don't really know like, oh, but what's like made this happen?
Yeah.
And then you kind of like hear the deals that like as they're being done, and you're like, whoa, like it doesn't even make sense to me.
Yeah.
Yet. Like, I'm still like, well, I just want to get my first customer, let alone like doing these huge deals. And so I think that's really cool.
Dude, fully agree. Your dad's super charismatic. When I went to go visit him at Harvard, he's like, let me introduce you to my friend.
Yeah.
Yo, so-and-so. He like pulls them all over. He's talking me off. So, yeah.
Mate, your Jam's favorite son. I like to bring it up. No, so yeah. So I suppose you moved over to San Francisco to get that kind of atmosphere. And I fully agree. Like, I think I had a similar kind of experience while I was over there. But I suppose it's kind of similar to being in Pittsburgh. How do you kind of balance your relationships, like your with your family, being so far away and being so focused on your work? How do you find time to still interact with them and connect with them? Because for me especially, it's like something I've thought about as well. Being so far away from home, I almost feel like I'm missing out on time with my family. And so I imagine for you, it's a lot worse as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think watching your parents get old is tough. So yeah, I in college, I only really came back once a year if I was lucky, generally once every 2 years. But now that I have a lot more control over my time, to some extent, I kind of can work from anywhere. I come back as much as I can. I'm back in Sydney right now. It's my grandfather's 80th birthday, so coming back, finding reasons to come back for like the important milestones, and I think you know I think making kind of everything work. Like, I could go into the city and work, but actually, I'd rather, I'm still working, but I'm working in the same room as my mom, or working in the same room as my dad. And, we'll like have, like water cooler kind of conversations, but yeah, I feel like it definitely is, definitely a challenge, and definitely something like I think about a lot. Like there's that Wait But Why article on how much time you have. And I think about that a lot. Like, how many more times, say I live in the US, how many more times will I actually come back and see my parents? It's once every year. Then if I'm lucky, maybe it's like 50 times. And that's not many.
Yeah. And it's like, it's such a compromise, right? Because I think it would be so easy at, this point in your life where you're very focused and working on something, working towards something, to kind of neglect that. But then when you have made it, you can't get that time back.
Yeah.
And I often try and think like a few steps ahead and think about the repercussions of what I'm doing, because as we kind of said at the start, you could build something incredible, but then when you get to the top, you might look back and go, what was the cost of me getting here?
Yeah.
And I remember my granddad said something. It's like, you can have all the money in the world, but at the end of the day, you can't get your happiness back. And I think that's so true. So it is something you have to kind of think about now, and weigh up the value of it, because
Absolutely.
And I think at the end of the day, also, your parents know and probably don't want you to stay here all the time, because they know that there's a cost to that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my 3 biographies that I try to reread all the time, one is by Felix Dennis. And he was like this super rich kind of playboy guy, larger than life personality. But at the end of the book, he writes it himself. It's very conversational.
Yeah.
At the end of the book, he says something like, "Dear reader, you were probably young, and you're probably reading this because you want wealth like mine. But if we could make a trade, I would trade all the wealth that I have now for the time that you have left, and we'd both feel like we got the better end of the deal." I think about that a lot.
Damn, that's really philosophical, hey?
Yeah.
Because I think you need to have some life experience to truly value what that means.
Yeah.
I think if you told a kid that, you'd be like, oh, sweet, like, give me all the money.
Yeah.
But then, once you start to kind of, get into adulthood, you truly appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And realize that at the end of the day, money's maybe not all of it.
Not what you're looking for. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get lost in that as well. Like, they think that's what success is.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's almost what society tells us success is as well. I think we get very lost in what, like, other people's metrics for success. And so, I've got a lot of respect for people like the 37 Signals guy, a lot of like these like digital nomad guys that, live life by their own design. They say, this is what I want, and I'm just going to go do that. I don't really want your $1 billion company or whatever, or even, I don't want to, I don't want your $1 billion company. I don't want your 9 to 5. I just want my little thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like a great example of that is one of our friends, James Pegg.
Yeah.
And during HSC,
great example.
Yeah, he decided he wanted to go and become an electrician.
Yeah.
And, for us, we were like, man, you're so incredibly intelligent, and, you have
brilliant guy. Yeah.
A life like career set up for you. You know, you could go and do engineering if you know want to be kind of something down that line. And you know, he was like, no, like this is what I want to do. And I know that his parents were a little bit upset at that as well.
Mm.
And at the beginning, we were kind of all like, oh, man, like look what he's done. And then it started to flip.
Mm.
We were all still at uni, and then he was out here making money. And it was like, oh, that's cool. But like once we finish, you know, we'll be earning more than James. And now it's like he's gone off on his own and he's started his own electrical business. And, you know, he's gone off on his own and done what's fulfilled him. And now he's at a point where, you know, he can work for a few weeks. Like, and he works incredibly hard. I'm not trying to say he doesn't work hard. He works very hard. I know that. But then he'll go on a trip somewhere.
Yeah.
And, you know, he can repeat that because that's what he values right now. And he has that freedom.
Yeah.
And I reminisce on that sometimes, you know, because I'm incredibly proud of what he's gone and achieved. And I envy him sometimes because he's built a lifestyle that is so perfect for him.
Yeah. It's exactly what makes him happy. Like,
yeah.
You know, it's the,
you know, he loves to travel, loves to surf, and he gets to go and do those things now. And he makes enough that he'll be able to continue that.
That's amazing.
And so I think that's just like the perfect example of doing something that fulfills you and not worrying about what other people think. Because he could have listened to all of us, listened to his parents, and then gone down an engineering path and maybe hated it. So I think that's
it made it work for him. Yeah.
Shout out James Pegg.
Yeah, I miss you, Pegg.
And so now you're working on a few different things, but what's the main business you're working on?
Yeah, I spend most of my time now on Vetro, which aggregates up nearly every job that gets posted on the internet, and then we repackage that and then sell it to people that are interested in that data. So that's mostly hiring agencies, sales teams, and consulting agencies.
Yeah.
And so there's just, every time a company posts a job, there's a lot of information that they're giving away. They're saying, hey, I need something done. And then they also tell you about the company. This is what the company does. These are the tools that we use. And so there's a range of different, agencies that can get that job done as well. You know, hiring somebody isn't the only option. And there's a range of technologies, particularly in engineering and sales tools, that other companies have maybe a better solution for. And so that data is very interesting to them. I'm also very interested in repackaging that data up for the masses as well through, job boards or interesting products like that. But I really want to have a good offering before releasing anything. Yeah. But I do think a lot about George Eastman. He was like one of the first kind of people to really discover he was like one of the first like great American entrepreneurs to really capitalize upon like the mass market.
Yeah.
Like he was the founder of the Kodak camera. And so for the first 10 years, he's just manufacturing chemicals to, regular photographers. And in his biography, it says, it's not written by him. In the biography, it says, hey, he's panning for gold. But then when he invents the Kodak camera, he's actually able to access and provide something of value to the mass market. And it says then he hits the gold mine.
Mm.
Yeah,
that's so interesting. And I know this company must be part of a larger vision for Mike G. What is that vision? When you sit down and think about it, what is the vision you have for your life?
I mean, I think it all goes back to, agency, being able to do what I want to do. I think it's hard for me to know or decide what I want to do in 10 years now, right? Like my financial situation will probably be different. My family situation might be different. Location. But right now, a big goal of mine is to really just solve the money problem. I think there are really great problems that I'd like to work on. Some things that I dabbled on in college, but I think to begin. I think these very cash flow positive businesses are quite good for getting kind of your initial well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
So it's more just kind of following your path and finding out what it is you want to do, and that ability to chase things as they come up.
yeah, like right now I think, I'm extremely happy. So I don't really have like happiness problems or anything. It's really having a bit more money would give me the agency to, or I think it would give me the agency to do more things, have a bit more flexibility over my time. If there are places that I want to travel to, then okay, I can. If there are people that I want to spend time with, okay, I can. I think solving that money problem first is probably pretty important. Like a lot of people that I admire first solved their money problem, then they went on to do like the big thing
I think it
they were known
unlocks.
for. Yeah,
It unlocks that freedom,
yeah.
as you said.
Like Benjamin Franklin, he was a printer before, he went on to found the United States of America and do electricity and stuff like that. Like Carnegie, he was like a massive investor before he went and did steel. I think all of these guys that I admire personally have really accumulated like a good amount of wealth, and then that gives them the flexibility to really do whatever they want after that. Yeah. And it's not to say they didn't enjoy being a printer.
100%.
Yeah.
And you've just mentioned a few people that you kind of idolize, and I also know that your dad is one of them. Are there any like other people that you kind of really look up to, or are there any mentors you've had along the way?
Lots of people I look up to. Lots of people that have really given me a lift up, like a order of magnitude higher than where I was before. Whether it be knowledge and opportunity. So many that I could be here mentioning them all day. I think at the end of the day, though, like I look for a lot of mentors through history, but my parents have been the greatest mentor throughout my life. I think there's like a really long tail of growing up and a lot of like learning that you take as a kid.
Yeah,
I think my dad and my mom have been there, kind of educating me and keeping me on a good path.
Yeah.
And they have given me the opportunity to kind of take this and run with it.
Yeah. And I think my dad is probably the person who mentioned this, but like at the end of the day, external mentors that you might have are never always in it just for you. And your family and your parents are probably the only people in the world who are truly backing just you. They want to see success of just you for no other reason.
Yeah. I think I've definitely got mentors and people that have helped me out just for the sake of helping me out. But yeah, I think there is something quite beautiful to your relationship with your parents.
100%.
Yeah.
And now I know you've done a lot of things that we've talked about. Do you have any regrets looking back?
Regrets? I don't think I have any regrets.
That's good.
Do you feel like you have regrets?
I don't know. I feel like there's a few like decisions that I've made along the way, which like I look back and I go, that could have sent me on an entirely different path. And it's maybe not like a regret per se, but it's like I'm very curious about what that other path would have ended up at.
Are there any in particular you think about a lot?
Like one that I talk about with one of our other friends.
Yeah.
It's so minor, but I think it actually could have sent me on a completely different path, was doing agriculture in high school.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because, I really love the country lifestyle, and I'm very interested in that space. And so, I think if I maybe had have done that, I would have been exposed to more of that.
You're good at it too.
And, who knows? It could have like completely changed my life path. And so that is something that, I talk about to one of our friends.
Would you ever revisit that? Being an ag man?
I don't know. I have talked to our friend Zach, who is in like agriculture and large animal veterinary.
Mm.
I've talked to him about potential businesses in the agriculture field. So who knows? Maybe one day.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing as you said. It's that I want to get to the point where if I have an opportunity in that field, I can go and pursue that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beautiful thing is like business skills and starting a business are very transferable across industries.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I'm quite excited for the future because I'm dead set on Lendercon at the moment.
Yeah.
But I also know like if it doesn't work,
there's plenty of opportunity out there.
I have so many other ideas in the book that I could whip out, and so yeah,
absolutely.
The future is bright, Mike.
The future is bright. I think I'm also very grateful that we were born at this time as well. I don't think we know what the future looks like, and probably the people in the agriculture revolution were like, "Wow, I'm so grateful to be born in this time."
Yeah.
But it is an exciting time. Like I think, unlike kind of the last, I think more and more, not like the last 50 years, but more and more, like individuals are gaining a lot more leverage through like tools.
Yeah.
And to the point where, anybody can really be a content creator now. There are a lot of people making their living out of it. And now there's like a niche show for like everything. Rather than before, you had to have like a whole film studio to create like a TV show.
Accessibility has become a big thing.
Yeah, it's really quite an incredible time to be alive, I think.
And I think we're at the pointy end of a few different revolutions. AI, clean energy. Like I think there's so much happening right now, and even for me, issues also present great opportunity.
Yeah.
So like the climate crisis for me is also an immense source of opportunities. So I think we are at an exciting point.
Very exciting time. Very exciting time.
And on the flip side of regrets, is there one thing that you look back and go, that is something that I'm so proud of? Like any accomplishments or anything that's happened on your journey?
A lot of things I'm grateful for. I realized actually in college how grateful I was that I have a really great relationship with my parents. I realized in college not a lot of people have that. Because I know how instrumental they've been in my life, shaping how I view the world. Being there, if I ever make a mistake and fail completely, I can always go back to them. Not a ton of people have that, I realized. That's something I'm really grateful for.
It's funny you said that because I had the same revelation. As you explore more, experience more, you get to meet a lot more people. And I think opening up to those different experiences, it makes you appreciate the experience that you've had.
Yeah.
Because you get to see an entire walk of life. So many different walks of life.
Oh, absolutely. From all over the world. Yeah.
Incredible. So it is a very special realization for sure. I had the same. And so now, we're at the tail end of things.
The tail end.
I want to, now we've discussed, your journey. I want to go back to the first question I asked you. And it was on your definition of success. And so now we've kind of talked about your story. Do you think you are successful now?
I think so. I try to think a lot about, okay, if I died next week, would I be happy? And maybe that's not everybody's metric on what makes them successful or happy or whatever. But, the goalposts will keep moving.
Yeah, 100%. They always do.
And so I think personally, I quite enjoying, enjoying the successes, living out the lows. But, of course, I want more. But I think I'd consider myself relatively to a personal, to a personal extent of like, am I fulfilled? Am I happy? Yeah, I am very happy and fulfilled.
That's awesome. Yeah. Because, from the outside, I would say you're successful as well. And, I've said it to you before, but you're definitely someone that I look up to because, you've you're on the same journey as me, but you're a few steps ahead. And I think that's also helped our bond as well, because we're both in kind of the same boat.
Yeah.
Um,
Same boat.
but you touched on something there. If I die tomorrow, like, would I be happy? And there was a book I was reading. I can't remember what book it is off the top of my head, but it's like you should write your own eulogy now.
Ooh.
And so if you did have to write your eulogy, it doesn't have to be long.
Yeah.
But what is it that you'd want to be said?
As a joke, I've like joked about what songs would play at my funeral, where my funeral might be, what song gets played as I get kind of lowered into the ground.
Good to be prepared.
Yeah, good to be prepared. My eulogy though. I think I'd have to come back to you on that. I think. I know deep down that I am living and working towards what I want to be a great life, hopefully a useful life. And so I think I'd just let the people talk the eulogy at my funeral. I don't know.
I love that. Humble man. Humble man. All right, we've been talking for quite a while now.
Yeah.
So let's
it's
kind of
getting dark out.
It's getting dark. For those watching, sorry for the camera quality, because it's very dark now. I kind of just wanted to recap some of the core factors to your success, which we've mentioned, and feel free to add any others. But I think being adaptable and just taking the punches as they come, and going with the flow. I think that's been a really crucial thing, and also just being open and transparent and having good, clear communication to really set the tone and the expectations that others have of you. And you talked a lot about agency, being able to do what you want when you want, and I think that also ties into your kind of try and fail mentality. And you read any startup book and fail fast is in there, right? And I think that's one of those things that when I mentioned you can hear it, but it doesn't make sense until you actually do it. I think that is one of them, at least for me. Always heard Dad say, go and do things and fail, but it's not until you actually take that leap and you actually do it that you realize, oh, like, I actually understand the benefit of it now. So I think that's an important one. And also I think your ability to have a really strong self-belief, but then also a really strong sense of self-reflection. Go back and look at, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? Am I going towards where I want to go? I think that's the key elements that we touched on. Is there anything else you'd add?
I think that's a great summary. Yeah.
Because I've been reading the book called The One Thing, and it really talks about don't try and go and do a lot of things, because if you do a lot of things, you won't do them well. And so kind of just take one thing and run with that. What do you think the one thing to that, if someone out there is trying to do better, what would be your little piece of advice? What's the one thing that you would say?
Don't know. I might look back on this and laugh, but honestly, I would say figure it out for yourself. Like, try lots of things, test your hypotheses on what you think will work, what you want to do. I think figure it out yourself.
I love that.
Don't listen to two guys on the internet.
And I think that's a great place to finish. I know you've heard throughout this interview, Mike is incredibly knowledgeable and can quote a lot of great people from history. And I know you have started posting a few things on your Twitter or X page. So for people who want to go and listen to those, where can they find them?
I'm on Twitter, Mike G CMU.
Mike G CMU. So go and check that out. And otherwise, this has been a fantastic fantastic discussion.
Thank you for having me.
No, mate, I'm really glad we sat down and did this, and I genuinely believe that we'll sit down in a few years' time when you are the traditional definition of success, and it'll be so incredible to reflect on your answers now compared to then. So thank you for giving up your time. I really appreciate it.
I can't wait to come back, and we'll be hopefully completely different people.
Mate, let's hope so. And on that note, thank you very much for listening. You can follow our journey at the Quest for Success Pod on Instagram. It's probably the best place to check us out. And then follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and it'd be a massive, massive favor if you could give us a 5-star review. And until next time, we'll see you later.
See you later.